Hi, friends. Monday on CBS News 24/7 gets us started with breaking news popping off of these monitors. We're live in the Lone Star State, and we are also watching what's going on in Washington, D.C. Storms in the weather and storms happening in the world of politics. We put the new in news. I'm Reed Cowan. Let's go. Top, riding our video feeds to a live look out of Houston. It is hard hit by Beryl. It's now a tropical storm, which is downgraded from a hurricane. We're talking about heavy rains and strong winds and a big worry, storm surge. What is that? Essentially, it's walls of water that could be 7 to 10 feet high. We'll check in with meteorologist Zoe Mintz shortly. But also, we want to get you to something that is a big developing story out of our nation's capital. The headlines in this new week plaguing the Biden campaign are not new. The campaign had hoped that going into a new week meant that maybe they could get a refresh and a restart. But right now, so many people questioning Joe Biden's ability to beat Donald Trump, and many, especially people in high places, are suggesting it's time for Joe Biden to step aside. So we're watching inside the White House right now, where Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre is about to answer reporter questions. As soon as she steps to that podium, we'll get that to you. But meanwhile, we want to talk to you about a defiant letter from Joe Biden to congressional Democrats today. They are saying that he should get out of the race, and Joe Biden is saying he's staying in the race. Biden's fight also went to national television to start this week. We wanted to give you a little sample of that. Listen to this.
The bottom line here is that we're not going anywhere. I am not going anywhere. I wouldn't be running if I didn't absolutely believe that I am the best candidate to beat Donald Trump in 2024. We had a Democratic nominating process where the voters spoke clearly. I won 14 million of those votes, et cetera. So I not only believe that from the beginning, but I wanted to reassert it and demonstrate that it's true. And I'm going to be doing that all through this week and from here on.
All right, so joining me live now to sort of go through this, CBS News Chief White House Correspondent Nancy Cordes. Nancy, this is the most fiery pushback that I've seen from Joe Biden in recent days. Do you think this will give some fire in his back off sort of message to Democrats?
That's what the White House and the Biden campaign are hoping, Reed. They are essentially flooding the zone today. In addition to that fiery letter that he sent to House Democrats this morning, he also had that fiery phone call with Morning Joe, where he asserted that if anybody doesn't like the fact that he's the nominee, they should challenge him at the convention. And now he's calling in at this hour to a victory fund phone call with donors being held by the leaders of the Biden campaign. He's taking questions from those donors who have a lot of concerns, as you know, about his ability to really take this fight to President Trump for the remaining months of the race. And so what the White House is essentially trying to do here is they are aware that this week is pivotal. They are aware that House and Senate Democrats are coming back to Washington after the July 4th recess. They're all talking with each other, maybe sharing their concerns, getting each other ginned up. And the fear was that you'd start to see this trickle of House Democrats calling on the president to step aside, that it would turn into a flood. And so they are trying to head that off by essentially saying to House Democrats who are on the fence, don't bother, the president is not going anywhere, and then essentially daring those House Democrats to follow through with it, knowing that if they do, not only could they potentially be branded as disloyal to the president, but it may not even make any difference because he and he alone has the power to decide whether he stays in this race or not, and he's making it very clear, at least for right now, that he is staying put.
President Joe Biden in recent days has also asserted that he and he alone can keep NATO tied together. We also understand he has a chance to showcase his strength this week addressing members of NATO. What can you tell us about that?
Right. When presidents are embattled, they often turn to the world stage. Conveniently for this president, he is hosting the NATO summit here in Washington, D.C. this week. Starting tomorrow, you'll have 32 world leaders coming here to Washington, D.C. to discuss issues of importance to NATO. This is a rotating hosting duty. Just so happens that the U.S. is hosting the NATO summit this year. So he will be interacting with those world leaders. You'll see images of him talking with them. Obviously, Ukraine is going to be a big item on the agenda. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky is expected to come here as well. And then that meeting is going to be capped on Thursday afternoon by a big presidential press conference. The first time we've had one of those here on U.S. soil, that there's not just one or two questions, but a full-blown press conference in something like 7 months. So high stakes as House Democrats watch for clues about whether this president has the energy, the stamina, the wherewithal to continue this race in the face of some of their questions about the way that he performed on stage in that debate a week and a half ago.
A week and a half later, and we are still talking about it. Nancy, thank you so much for that update. I think this is going to be a big week for the Biden camp. All right, I want to get you back to Houston right now, showing you video just coming to us on our monitors. Our editors put together this time-lapse image that really brings Beryl to life as it hits Houston, Texas. You can see there, they go from great visibility to just downright wet. And from that time lapse to what Houston looks like right now. Now, keep in mind, when you go to Houston, they'll quickly say that they remember Harvey. They are worried that this storm could have been as bad as that 2017 hurricane that many people knew and are still recovering from. And Zoe, you're watching right along with our CBS partners who are in Dallas right now.
Yes. We are watching the hurricane that continues to move in full force, and it's brought some very catastrophic damage with upwards of 4 to 6 feet of storm surge, along with a total of 8 to 12 inches of rain expected. And we'll have the details with Scott Paget, chief meteorologist in Dallas, and he'll give you a more intense and in-depth look at that hurricane.
Thanks, Zoe. And the time-lapse from our Dallas City Cam shows the bands of Beryl rotating their way through. As we've gone through the morning hours, these tropical downpours continuing to happen. And that's going to be the story as we go through the remainder of the morning hours into the afternoon. And some spots already dealing with a half of an inch of rain in some localized spots, and more is on the way. Now, what's interesting with the shift of the track, our First Alert Futurecast picking up on the fact that the heaviest rain now shifting its way further to the east as we go through the remainder of the afternoon hours. But still, the potential is there. We could have some of those tropical rainfalls amounts for us here in a lot of the Metroplex, but the highest amounts will be in the east sides of North Texas. That's where we have a flood watch in effect through Tuesday morning. 4 inches to 7 inches of rainfall possible, maybe some 8-inch amounts in some isolated spots. There's the track continuing to pull its way off towards the east-northeast. My concern as we go through the remainder of the afternoon, the flooding rains and also maybe some quick spin-up tornadoes as we continue to see Beryl make its way off towards the north and to the northeast. Zoe, back to you.
Thanks, Scott. Yes, we are looking at barreling all across the United States, and it's going to continue to over the next 24 to 48 hours. Let's just take a look at where it is right now. Taking a look at the clouds as well. Beryl making its way up. The area that you do see definitely going to be impacting the southern United States. The Gulf Coast areas are really going to be impacted. But if we do take a closer look at where the storm is right now and how it continues to push forward, that is something to keep in mind. Beryl, again, has officially made landfall. It made landfall early this morning in Saratoga, Texas, and it continues to push off to the north and east like Scott showed you. Right now it is down to tropical storm status. It had hurricane force wind gust upwards of 80 miles an hour, but again, as it comes into contact with land, that's when we see it beginning to weaken, and it will continue to weaken tonight. Check out our look at 6 p.m. Most of that cloud coverage is already gone from the Houston area as that storm is quickly moving its way across the United States. That will continue overnight tonight and into tomorrow, where the Ohio River Valley regions will be dealing with widespread rain, potentially flooding, and maybe even some isolated spin-up tornadoes. All things to keep your eye on as we step out over the next 24 to 48 hours.
All right, Zoe, thanks for that. So we have live cameras all throughout the state of Texas, and especially in Houston. We're looking at this through our video monitors. This is a live look at, one more time, a soggy Houston, Texas. And also we're aware that more than 1 million people are without electricity in Texas. That means no AC when it's hot, no heat when it's cold, Now we're seeing it's jumped up to 1 million. These numbers change in real time. Look at that. Making that case, this is from the Center's Point Energy website. This is one of the utilities in that state. Customers restored in the last 24 hours, well, almost 500,000. So if you see somebody out there and you live in that area and they are trying to get your electricity back on, maybe say a thank you. All right, so let's pull our team off of the monitors and direct you right now to the stream. You see them there. Janet Chamlian is in Sugar Land, Texas, where it is anything but sweet right now. And Omar Villafranco is live in Galveston. Omar, let's start with you. You're over on the coast where that storm surge has really been the fear.
It has been, and there's been a steady wind. We had gusts earlier from 40 to 60 miles an hour. Well, it was a gust. Those were steady winds, 40 to 60. We had some gusts that were up to 71 at peak times, and they were coming, of course, with bands of rain. But now the rain has tapered off a little bit. But you can see behind me, we still have plenty of wind. Behind me is the Galveston seawall and the Gulf of Mexico and the beach right there. The beach is churning, but people are out on the roads. They're starting to kind of peek back out after hunkering down. The good news is not really many people are going on the beach. They don't want people to do that. But people are trying to get back to normal. They're cleaning up some of the roads. Now, the main thing, as you mentioned, was that storm surge. We had estimates of anywhere from 4 to 7 feet. Not only that, we had flash flooding over here. Everything around here is at sea level. So when there's rain coming in, that flash flooding come up pretty quick. We have some flash flooding issues here in Galveston and also in the Houston area. But right now, things seem to be winding down right now as this storm moves on. And as you mentioned, and the meteorologist mentioned, we may even be able to see the sunset this evening, when earlier today that did not seem possible.
Wow, that sunset will be a sigh of relief. Omar, thank you so much. Be safe there. Okay, let's continue that team coverage. Janet Chamlian is live for us in Sugar Land, Texas. Just to sort of position our viewers, Janet, you're inland. You're about an hour and 10 away from where Omar was. What's it like where you are?
Yeah, we are in Sugar Land. As you said, it's an hour north of Galveston. It's also about 20 miles southwest of the city. We really took a hard hit here, and people are just starting to get out and assess the damage. There's been trees down. People have been trying to drive on the roads. Now that we have a little break, you can see it's not as heavy, Reed, as it was earlier. We saw a very dramatic rescue in Houston where someone tried to get on a flooded interstate. It brought out the Houston Fire Department to get this man off of his truck, which was flooded almost up to the top. And that's the concern right now. Houston officials held a news conference saying, like, look, this is not the time to get back out on the roads, because while we're through the worst of it, the ground here is already so saturated, and we are still getting rain. So we know that the danger still exists. And it's one thing to get out and assess your home and look at the damage. And in fact, my husband, I live closer to downtown. My husband's sending me pictures of the damage at our home. It's another thing to get out on the roads and try to get somewhere today, just not to be advised here in the Houston area. Reed.
All right, listen to the warnings. That's the bottom line in the headline. Please give our best to the people in that community. We're thankful for your report. You know, we cover communities. When news happens, we are right there where you are. And coast to coast and streaming worldwide, you're watching CBS News 24/7. I'm back in just a few minutes. All right, our cameras are fired up across the world right now, giving us a look at the aftermath of a Russian missile attack in Ukraine. So this one is bad. Missiles hit a children's hospital. So we're watching as neighbors jumping in to help neighbor. And look at that, rubble, digging through rubble, twisted metal, all in the work to find and save children. This is Ukraine's largest children's hospital. So far, 31 confirmed dead, 150 hurt. Among the injured, but alive, 7 children pulled from this rubble. But as you can see, the work continues. These missiles were also different. They hit in the daytime, which is a rare event in this fight. More daytime missiles also hammered Kyiv and other surrounding cities. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will have more to say about this in front of a national audience when he addresses NATO in Washington today. In fact, we just got this video. When we see it, you see it. That's our promise to you. And this is the moment that missile struck the children's hospital. As you can see, the missile adept to get around other tall buildings and what looks to be a targeted strike. As rescuers are now in that rubble trying to get a better sense of who's been saved or tragically not. We'll turn that information around for you very quickly here on the stream. But for now, our monitors are seeing the run-up to the trial of Alec Baldwin in New Mexico happening in real time. Alec Baldwin fighting a felony involuntary manslaughter charge in the death of Rust cinematographer Helena Hutchins. Baldwin knows he faces 18 months in prison if convicted for that horrible moment in 2021 when Baldwin held that revolver during a rehearsal. That's when the gun went off, killing Hutchins and wounded director Joel Sousa. Hey, I want to show you video of people who are doing what most of us tried to avoid this weekend. They went to Death Valley to see what 128 degrees feels like.
Honestly, it's definitely shocking. I don't know how anything can survive out here. Do you know how many people warned me about coming here this weekend? But to say that it's a record high, that's cool. That's one for the books.
It's worse than an oven. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like an oven. It's like walking in the oven.
Or a hot hair dryer.
Or you open the oven after 350.
Yeah.
It's in the face.
And it was deadly, though. We are getting word a motorcyclist died and another was hospitalized from the heat there. Zoe, not far from Death Valley. I'm seeing Las Vegas also hit a high record that wasn't too far off from the Fahrenheit in Death Valley.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. Yesterday, Las Vegas, Nevada, 120 degrees, when the record high temperature before it was 116 degrees. So they broke the record high temperature by over 4 degrees. That is just how intense this heat dome is that continues to set up across the western United States. There's a lot of cloud coverage in the southern parts of the world, but look up across the United States and look at where we are not seeing that cloud coverage. Up across the west, there's nothing. It is a huge area of high pressure, also known as a heat dome, and that's what we're going to be seeing over the next couple of days. The heat is only going to continue over the next week ahead of us. Unfortunately, the heat wave not going anywhere anytime soon. If we take a look at how hot it's going to be even this afternoon, the heat continues. Yesterday was record-breaking for places like Reed said, Las Vegas, but not just them. Medford, Oregon, they reached 112 degrees yesterday. The record high temperature was 104 before that. So that is over 10 degrees above the record high. It's pretty crazy how the heat continues all across the West Coast. And if we take a look at where the heat is really going to be setting up across the United States, yes, it's the West Coast with widespread excessive heat warnings, heat advisories, and even excessive heat watches that are going to remain in effect throughout the rest of the week through Friday at 9 p.m. I'll break down even more details on how hot it's going to get and when we might see a little bit of relief. That'll be coming up in just a minute.
All right, definitely one to see coast to coast and streaming worldwide, whether it's hot or cold. You're watching CBS News 24/7. We're back in just a few minutes. Our Eye on America series keeps us at CBS News in the business of keeping promises to you. When news happens where you live right there in your community, we are there. And case in point, this next story. You know, last week we focused on squatters and how antiquated laws often protect those who are illegally occupying sometimes your property. Well, today we're going deeper on that story. Carter Evans is about to show you who some property owners are turning to when law enforcement cannot help.
When Flash Shelton found a squatter in his mother's home in Northern California 5 years ago.
Are you Flash?
Yeah.
I'm Marla.
Hey.
I'm really sorry.
He figured out a way to work around the system that often appears to protect the squatter, not the property owner. Shelton outsquats the squatter.
These people feel like the law allows them to do it, so why not me?
The squatter hunter, as he's known.
This is the woman leaving at 5:06 a.m.
Targets squatters like this woman who moved into an apartment without permission while it was being fixed up. The property owner has provided Shelton with a legal lease to the apartment.
Based on the conversations and based on everything, I'll make a decision whether I'm going to literally move in with them.
Because he's now the real tenant, he can change the lock and turn the tables on the squatter.
They can't kick me out because I have a lease. So it's a game. It's a chess match.
Sometimes the squatter calls the cops. In this case, they quickly determined it's a matter for civil court, which still could take months to resolve with no guarantees.
Squatters are taking advantage of people. They just know that there's a system out there that allows them to live rent-free.
If someone takes possession of a property illegally, they're in violation of the law.
State Senator Bob Archuleta pushed through a new law in California allowing property owners to file a no trespass notice with local police.
It's good for a year. And it's there, it's on record. This way it gives the authority for the officers to respond because it's already been registered that no one is allowed in that building.
Florida also has a new law allowing cops to evict squatters immediately when they don't have a valid lease, and several other states have passed or proposed tougher measures on squatting. But until there are new laws on the books,
they're just saying, we're not leaving.
Lando Thomas and Kimberly Kotchik will confront squatters for a fee, starting at $2,500.
MJ, you in there, bro? How you doing?
This time, they're trying to get a 26-year-old named Samjay to leave this Airbnb rental, along with his pregnant girlfriend and their 5 dogs.
You were supposed to leave on the 10th. This property owner needs his property back.
I would love to give it back to him, and as I've said, as soon as we can get a place.
It's now a race against time. If Samjay manages to stay here for 30 days, they'll have to go to court to evict him, where the law considers squatters legitimate tenants with certain rights of their own.
Are you going to move out? It's not possible for me to get all my stuff out now.
So where will you go when you leave here?
We got nowhere to go.
It sounds like you're saying you're on the verge of homelessness.
You could say that. Yeah, times are tough.
The squad finally talked Samjay into leaving with an offer to pay for a motel room and storage while he looks for a new place to live. And as hard as that may be to believe, for now, it's the quickest and cheapest way to get this squatter to leave a property he doesn't actually own. For Eye on America, I'm Carter Evans in Los Angeles.
Coast to coast and streaming worldwide, focusing on issues in your communities and those fighting for solutions. You're watching CBS News 24/7. We're back in just a few minutes. It's a new week in Washington, but the headlines plaguing the Biden campaign are not new. More Democrats questioning Joe Biden's ability to beat Donald Trump, suggesting it's time for Biden to step aside. You are looking live right now inside the White House press briefing room. Reporters at the ready to meet White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre. She will be standing there to answer reporters' questions, no doubt. Once again, asking about President Joe Biden and some pretty fiery statements that he's made, not only in written form, but also on a cable TV, really a blustery conversation on MSNBC this morning. Pretty fascinating to see Joe Biden digging in his heels. That letter that we're talking about was Joe Biden to congressional Democrats today. He's saying essentially, I'm staying in the race. By the way, First Lady Jill Biden, she's fighting for her husband's campaign, this time in North Carolina. We just got this video a few moments ago of the First Lady speaking at a Wilmington political event for veterans and military personnel.
Just as he has always supported my career, I am all in too. Deserves better. You deserve a commander-in-chief who serves with integrity and wisdom and character. And that's my husband, Joe Biden.
So that's the First Lady of the United States really making a push and doing some damage control after all the president has gone through the last few weeks. We want to take you live now to Texas after Beryl made landfall on the coast there. That is a very soggy image of Houston, Texas right now. People, though, out and about. You're starting to see people on the freeways, and people are sort of hunkering down, and now they're starting to get out and see their neighbors and see what the need is there in Houston, Texas. Zoe, we want to show some more video coming out of Houston right now.
Yes, it is luckily a very quick moving storm system. So the bulk of the activity was earlier this morning when it made landfall around 5 a.m. in the Texas Gulf Coast. It brought some heavy downpours. In fact, many locations are reporting over 5 inches of rain. And you can see people trying to drive through it. Some people couldn't. They had to get pushed. All things to keep in mind as we step out. The hurricane will continue to make its way over the United States over the next 24 to 48 hours. Let's take a a look at our globe right now and show you exactly where it is, because it's quickly, again, making its way across the United States up to our north. It's kind of hard to see, but either way, all the clouds across the United States are brought to us by the hurricane. The hurricane will continue to very quickly traverse across the U.S., and as it does so, that is where we're concerned about even more flooding, even more tornado threats as well. Right now, you can see where it is. It has officially made landfall. It continues to push very quickly up to the northeast over the next 24 hours. But again, Houston, look at where it is right now. It's already seen the heaviest of that rain, and the outer bands that are going to bring more tornado threats are again going to continue to push up north. So this is our view at around 7:30. Might not even see any more clouds over Houston. It will continue to very quickly make its way over the Ohio River Valley, and it could potentially bring them some flooding, torrential rainfall, and maybe even a few isolated tornadoes. So severe weather threat is not done, but it's going to continue to push across the central United States.
All right, and Zoe, the video that comes off of our video monitors continues to make that case. Severe weather, and there you see Houston waterlogged. This is just one area. You see the bus stop there. Also, people having to push their cars. Some of the cars waterlogged completely. Deeper waters tends to damage cars, and so once again, we're seeing that happen there in Houston, Texas. This is a look from Houston as well. And then we have also a look from Angleton. Do we have that video there we can show, guys, which is about 45 miles away from Houston? There it is right there. This is a water rescue happening in real time, and I just want to really go in on this because this is the situation in one part of Texas. This video taken obviously from a bridge, an overpass. The guy got waterlogged in his truck, but look, you see the cable that's attached there. That is a first responder in Angleton who is going to make sure that that person gets out and gets out safely. Thank goodness for that. Listen, even 8 inches of water can really cause a person to get waterlogged and not be able to go very far. This is another look, which is about 45 miles away from Houston, and you just see how swampy it is there. It wasn't too many years ago that areas like this saw the water levels rise to the point where they had those lines on the sheetrock inside their houses, and they had to cut out their sheetrock, rip the carpet out. Water damage in and around Houston, really, with the last hurricane. Obviously, this isn't a hurricane, it's now a tropical storm, but that hurricane made it so many homeowners just lost so much. We want to show you a live look right now at a map from the website FlightAware. And you see all of the flights that are happening all over the United States. But then look at that right there. You can see the storm there, and that is how you can even see planes flying into the storm right now. But as we know, these storms, once they go over land masses, they start to break up. So if you're logging onto FlightAware and you're seeing that, you can bet that by about 5 o'clock, as Omar was able to tell us, this thing should break up, and some parts of Houston might be able to see a sunset tonight. May it be so. But our video feeds are also taking us to Mexico that make a case for why Texas felt troubled by Beryl. In fact, this is where it made landfall and made such a mess in Mexico. It just tore up so many things. This is somebody's yard. Obviously, they're not going to have a lot of people going to buy that house very soon. It's for sale there. And you remember when I left you last Friday, tourists were really working to get out of this area. Some stayed, so those who stayed, now this is what they're getting out and looking at right there. We're understanding in Mexico, hundreds were saved because they went into hurricane shelters. But also, Beryl hit Jamaica, and I want you to really see, this is the devastating. This was sort of like the front line of the force of Beryl, and you see it right there. Homes destroyed in Jamaica. We're also understanding that this drone is sending us a video that really makes the case that electricity is out, sewer and water lines are out. So Jamaica is really going to have a hard fight in rebounding. This is also video out of Jamaica, and this is what it looks like in somebody's front yard right there. It's going to be a long time before people can even get in to assess the damage and see what is left, what can actually be rebuilt. That's a home that used to have a roof, and obviously that's somebody who's telling the story of such a loss to a family. As Jamaica and Mexico recover and as Beryl tears its way through Texas, we'll be here at CBS News 24/7. We'll continue to watch that storm's path, not only on the ground, but in the sky. We'll show you the impacts on air travel as well. And we'll also try to find those stories of how you can help people who are caught in the hurricane. We know in times like this, better angels come out and we help each other. Coast to coast and streaming worldwide, you're watching CBS News 24/7. We're back. Welcome back, and happening right now, we continue to watch this podium inside the White House press briefing room. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre was supposed to be speaking with reporters about 20 minutes ago, but we just got word that press briefing has been pushed back 20 to 30 minutes. So we'll continue watching that. As soon as she steps up to the microphone there, we will let you listen in to the questions reporters have. It's a tense week for the Biden campaign. Meanwhile, let's jump the map to go to Detroit. Tragedy there in East Detroit, sparking outrage. We can tell you 2 people died, 19 people injured in a block party shooting that happened over the weekend. Police say they don't have any suspects in custody as of now, but they do understand that this was just one of several violent instances at block parties that took place in the Detroit area over the holiday weekend. In fact, we got this from the mayor of Detroit speaking at a news conference this morning on their efforts to try and curb the violence at block parties.
Hundreds of people showed up at these parties from a range of 50 miles away. We had people reported from northern Ohio at these events. This is not your neighbor's family's party got large. These are intentional, pre-planned events looking to attract people from miles away, people who are coming here carrying illegal weapons, planning to party into the wee hours of the evening, believing that the neighbors in the Detroit Police Department will not stop the lawless gatherings.
So the mayor there also adding they'll be prosecuting hosts and even property owners of any illegal block party. This is one to watch. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin meeting with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg in Virginia today ahead of the Washington summit.
This summit will celebrate 75 years of the greatest defensive alliance in history. The summit will deepen our extraordinary transatlantic bond and strengthen our shared security. I know that President Biden is proud to host this summit, and he looks forward to marking our historic achievements with leaders from our now 32 NATO allies.
Mistake about it, the summit comes at a crucial time for the alliance as they look to the future of the conflict in Ukraine and concerns over what a second Trump term could mean for NATO members. We also today have new information about a trip by our nation's CIA director to Qatar this week to join in ceasefire negotiations between Hamas and Israel. CIA Director Bill Burns is headed to Qatar for talks later this week as word broke out of Gaza this weekend that more Israeli strikes killed dozens. And we are also getting information that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has added a new condition to the ceasefire talks, saying Israel has to be able to resume fighting Hamas as part of any deal. I want to get you to France right now on a developing story in the world of politics. It was a story that shocked a lot of people when you opened up the newspaper or turned on television today. In elections there, a right-wing takeover was all but expected. But guess what? Overnight, leftists beat out those on the far right. Elaine Cobb breaks down these results from Paris.
Leftist supporters gathered in central Paris last night to heave a collective sigh of relief as the exit polls showed the French far-right's dream of taking power had been dashed, proclaiming it a victory for the values of the French Republic. On the sidelines, masked protesters clashed with police. As the count continues, the combined left group is tipped to take the most seats in Parliament.
Relieved more than anything, really overwhelmingly relieved.
President Macron's centrist alliance came in second, but will still have fewer seats than before. In a shock result against the predictions, the far-right trailed in third as left and centrist voters turned out in force to block them. But it still made historic progress and is tipped to take 60% more seats than in the last elections. However, it is destined to be in opposition to whatever coalition President Macron can pull together.
This will be this very, very hard to predict. I mean, really, you're looking into dense fog. Some of these less radical MPs will join forces perhaps with the Socialists and the Greens and the Communists and form a government which could perhaps rest on the support and part of Macron's party in the parliament.
President Macron will have his work cut out for him forming a government, and he has vowed not to include the far left, which made significant gains last night. Reid?
All right, Elaine, thank you so much for that. And by the way, the Paris Olympics about to kick off as well. So big news out of Paris. I want to go on our map now to Eagle Point, Oregon, where the Salt Creek fire rides wind, gusts, and spreads to a burn scar of now more than 1,500 acres. People there told to get ready to evacuate. And as they leave, you can see here on this screen, this is their view. Huge plumes of smoke. The air quality is just terrible there. We're also pulling this video off of our monitors, this time from Santa Barbara County, California. This is new footage from the massive lake fire. This one exploded to nearly 19,000 acres over the weekend. So guess what? Firefighters come in, an army of more than 600 of them fighting this fire in triple-digit temperatures. This is, by the way, the area where Michael Jackson's famous Neverland Ranch is. One structure there damaged, we understand, and another home in very close danger. Let's also go east of Sacramento. Firefighters busy battling this fire. It's called the Pay Fire. This is near Placerville, California. The fire began Saturday and quickly threatened a nearby airport. Rachel Wolf in the thick of it, covering this story with our CBS partners in Sacramento.
We're at the Placerville Airport, which has been closed because CAL FIRE crews are working to suppress the Pay Fire. You can see them right there in the distance. This is the runway. CAL FIRE crews stationed all up and down this ridge, and you can see where the fire ripped up this hillside, taking with it live oaks, manzanitas, all the underbrush from the last couple of years. We've had record or near record rainfall, and all of that vegetation has really come up, and that's what's fueling not just this fire, but a lot of fires in Northern California. You can see the fire retardant on the grass just below us, and the heat that is coming up. You can't see that or feel that on television, but I'm telling you right now, there is still a lot of heat coming up from this scorched earth. This fire breaking out over the weekend, and they pulled together all sorts of local resources from CAL FIRE to assisting agencies, fire protection districts. And this has been a year that's been challenging, and that's why they had to have all hands on deck to try to suppress the fire, keep it at 77 acres. It was 25% contained overnight, now 35% contained. We had mandatory evacuation orders all around here, people getting out of harm's way, letting these crews come in here, station at their different homes to keep this fire from impacting, well, infrastructure. The airport is a key point in and out of here. So again, this fire seems to be trending down. They've got crews monitoring it, and they will continue to do that and lift some of those evacuation orders throughout the day. Back to you, Reed.
Hot summer. All right, take a look at your screen because we've got new video of a home destroyed by the fire in Mariposa County. It's a French fire in California. This one reached 900 acres, and we understand this is just one of several homes that were destroyed before crews were able to get in and stop the momentum of the fire. Mariposa is just a short step away from Yosemite National Park, so some of these homes are vacation homes that people would go and stay in to enjoy the grand Yosemite area. So sad. Those fires fueled in part by a record heat wave across the western United States, but some people, we understand, are looking to experience something even hotter, thermometer-popping temperatures. Visitors from around the world headed to Death Valley, where a Saturday record was hit, 128 degrees, but officials urging people to take precautions to stay cool because while people were going there to see what 128 degrees feels like, a motorcyclist died, another person hospitalized from heat exposure over the weekend. So, Zoe, when will people, maybe not in Death Valley, but elsewhere, see some relief from the heat dome?
It unfortunately might not be until later this weekend as the heat is going to be on. And just to put things into perspective, Death Valley's record high temperature ever was 134. So the fact that they made it to 128 is really, really crazy. And that's all going to be the biggest issue as we step out over the next 7 days as a huge heat dome continues to build. And you can actually see the heat dome in the areas that there aren't any clouds. The areas across the western United States are feeling that impact of the high pressure. And we're going to continue to see the impacts of that high pressure when it comes to our daytime high temperatures, with many locations across the United States shattering their record high temperatures yesterday, and more record-breaking high temperatures are likely today. So the West Coast is where all eyes are going to be on. Yesterday, Medford, Oregon reached 112 degrees. Their record high temperature for the day was 104. That's nearly a 10-degree jump in their records. So the heat continues all across the western United States. Las Vegas, 116 today, where yesterday they reached 120, and that's their record high for ever. This is the hottest they've ever seen on record. And the heat is going to continue, like I said. Just take a look behind me. Widespread advisories all across the West Coast with excessive heat warnings, heat advisories, excessive heat watches that will remain in effect for the rest of the week. And just make sure you do practice heat safety, drink a lot of water, and don't forget the sunscreen. Back to you, Reed.
All right, thank you. So Tropical Storm Beryl sitting on Texas after it made U.S. landfall this morning off the southeastern coastline of Texas. And we're already seeing some pretty intense flooding. Also, a lot of wind there. Most dangerously, storm surges, walls of water, the potential. Jason Allen is in the Port Lavaca area with this report.
In this community that is situated just alongside Lavaca Bay, people here are very thankful that this flooding, this street flooding that you see back here from rainwater, that some intermittent power outages up and down this neighborhood, and some minor damage to roofs and siding is really as bad as it got. You know, this storm was forecast to potentially bring anywhere from 4 to 7 feet of storm surge, water that would wash directly in from the bay, also get into the inlets, and then flood out homes potentially that are situated in and out of the waterways here. But that never materialized. We talked to a lot of people who stayed here. They said that their houses came through it okay, although it got a little bit nerve-wracking at times in the overnight hours. But they also said there were more of their neighbors than usual that either boarded up their homes or packed up their belongings and evacuated. People who are taking things very, very seriously. Just a couple of weeks after Tropical Storm Alberto flooded this area with a couple feet of water, for a while, the path had this community right directly in its sights. So a lot of people taking this seriously, and they know, Reed, this is just the beginning of the hurricane season.
Jason Allen, thank you so much. Our camera is fired up across the world right now, giving us a look at the aftermath of something terrible, a Russian missile attack in Ukraine, and this one is bad. The missiles hit this children's hospital, and that's the result there. We're watching as neighbor helps neighbor, getting in with buckets in some cases, moving rubble to try to find children alive. This is Ukraine's largest children's hospital. So far, 31 found in the rubble dead, 150 others pulled out, hurt. Among those injured but alive are 7 children. Now, these missiles were different. They hit in the daytime, which is a rare event for this conflict. More daytime missiles also hammered Kyiv and other surrounding cities. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will have more to say about this because he'll be in front of a national audience when he addresses NATO in Washington today. In fact, we just got this video, and when you see, you actually are taking that in. You kind of can hear it there as well. That's the moment that missile struck the children's hospital, and then, of course, the plume of smoke and the dust that came up as a result, right as that missile hit. Well, as rescuers in the rubble get a better sense of who has been saved or tragically not, we will turn that information around for you quickly here on the stream, but we did want to show that to you. We're also getting word out of Niger that U.S. troops are pulling out of that country, and soon. We're talking about nearly 1,000 personnel told to leave after the country's new ruling party gave the U.S. until September 15th to withdraw. The $100 million drone base in central Niger provided crucial intel on jihadi-linked groups. But for now, our monitors are seeing the run-up to the trial of Alec Baldwin in New Mexico. Baldwin is fighting a felony involuntary manslaughter charge in the death of Rust cinematographer Helena Hutchins. Baldwin knows he faces 18 months in prison if convicted for that horrible moment in 2021. Baldwin held a revolver during a rehearsal. That gun went off, killing Hutchins and wounding director Joel Sousa. We're learning some big news for those of you who fly. Get this, Boeing agreed to a plea deal to avoid a criminal fraud charge stemming from 2 737 MAX crashes that killed 346. Boeing will pay hundreds of millions of dollars in fines and spend just shy of $500 million in shoring up some safety measures and protocols. A federal judge, we understand, still has to review and sign off on that deal. That is it for us at CBS News 24/7. We want to let you know we continue to have cameras trained on the White House for that press briefing. But before we head to break, we take you live back to Houston,